r/ask Reddit. What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of? That my English teacher didn't read essays and based grades on how we were in class. I know this for a fact about my freshman English teacher. I put "Are you reading this?" in the middle of a paper. She did not mark it or ever comment on it. Once, in a science lab report I put "include later," intending to come back and finish that section last. I forgot to. When I got it back graded, the teacher had circled it and written, "How much later?" Dentists ask you questions with all that stuff in your mouth because they think it's funny to watch you struggle. Wife is a dental assistant. I asked her this. She says it's to distract the patient to make them feel it didn't take as long as it really did. Edit. All you introverts. I totally understand. But dentists are medical professionals. If it makes it worse for you, no problem. Just talk to them and explain. It will be fine. I had a dentist who used to sing. Lovely man he was. Great Welsh accent. Some zoos have empty exhibits and just claim the animal isn't there. You just never see them. I've gone to the same zoo once a year for the past 10 years and not once have I seen the wombat there. Edit. Thanks for the gold. I laughed at this. That only about 20% of people actually do any work. The rest just get by looking busy. I'd say 80% of people work just 20% of their work hours. I finished all my work by 8:30 this morning. At the end of each month. This is how it is. Edit. For those asking about how to get my job, trust me, you don't want it. Work environment is grueling most of the time and I have to deal with so much bullshit I could write a series of books. I'm also about to have to double my workload in only half my time. Due to the idiotic unique decisions of the company owner, we're literally taking on the work of a whole other company right after they slashed my hours with only 2 days notice. I'm actually looking to leave this place right now. Historians plus 200 years from now will be able to look at all of the private messages and data of people who have been long dead, similar to how we can read private letters of people from 1700s. The issue is that digital records are by no means permanent. Sure. But I'd be amazed if Google, Apple, FB, etc. don't have extensive data on me and every other user. Messages, photos, videos, links. Everyone I know who works at these places know that it's all sitting on a server somewhere. That my abusive stepfather went to jail, not exile, for 8 years when I was a teen and that for a few years prior we were actually running from the law, not hiding from the government because of his activism. This suddenly dawned on me about a month ago, more than a decade later. Kinda like how it suddenly clicks that the dog didn't go to a farm. Edit. Holy shit, this blew up. For those asking for the story, here's what I vaguely remember. I just did the math and this was almost 20 years ago. I'm Kenyan and at that time, we were under the dictatorship of Moi, another a-hole. And back then you couldn't say anything that painted the government wrongly. I was too young, maybe 13, to fully understand, but what we were led to believe by my mother is he did something bad to the government. At that time it was common for political activists to go into exile, so we didn't question it. For about 2 years prior, I ran them making us move cities and stay indoors. The two kept disappearing without warning for weeks at a time, leaving me behind to babysit my 3 siblings. My mother ain't us neither, but that's a story for another day. Towards the end, we lived in a 4-bedroom bungalow and were instructed to stay in the bedrooms and the back at all times, never switching on the lights in the living areas that face the main street. We skipped a school year because of this. Then one day she came back alone and he never came back. Later she mentioned he might be in Turkey. I think I made the connection that he had fled there and left it at that. TBH, I was too happy that he was no longer at home and I was finally free. His presence had been a constant darkness in our lives. Years later, my mother mentioned he's back and asked if we wanted him back. We all said no. He moved back to his hometown. I've never seen him again. Back then they only kept manual records. If I wanted to find proof, I could check for his records at the high courts, but honestly he was and still is good riddance, so why bother, man? As I write this, memories keep flooding in and I keep getting amazed that it took me this long to make the connection. Some shit was so obvious. I'm 42. I realized this summer that my dad is an alcoholic. He's been stumbling around drunk for 42 goddamn years and I realized it this year. Kids are funny about that stuff. First time I went to a party in high school I was like, hey, this stuff smells like my parents' room. Oh shit. Cornhole is a conspiracy by the insurance industry because they feel horseshoes is too dangerous. This is the kind of low stakes conspiracy I could get into. More like no stakes since horseshoes is the one you actually have to shove something in the ground for. That Bath and Body Works has like 13 unique scents. Every couple of months they just rotate the scents in and call them something else. Edit. Thank you for the gold, stranger. I read something similar to this by a Yankee Candle outlet employee. Most of the scents are identical but the names get licensed so they need to be changed from what's in the actual chain stores. And half the time in those main stores the new seasonal scent has just been renamed from last season. That the ginger ale at this diner I go to every day is just Coke and Sprite mixed together. It is actually not unheard of for ginger ale to be swapped out for the Coke Sprite combo. They are just counting on you not noticing. Source: used to work in the service industry. What? How could you not notice that? I feel like I'd notice every time. But maybe I've already been fooled. That my grandmother had a child before she married my grandfather. When my grandparents met and started dating, my grandma was only 13. My grandpa was 20. They married when she was 17 and he was 24. Right after he came back from serving in World War II. That was about as much of the story as anyone in my family ever knew. They'd been dating. Then he went overseas, and she wrote to him while he was gone. When he got back, they got married. A few years after my grandma died, my grandfather suddenly mentioned that they'd actually been broken up for a while before she started writing to him. After they'd dated about a year, he went to pick her up at her house one day, only to find she wasn't home. Her parents informed him that she'd left to live with some cousins a few hours away, and she'd be gone for about a year. He got upset that she hadn't told him about this in advance and ended the relationship. When another year-ish had passed and she returned home to her parents, she started writing him overseas and apologized, and they started dating again. My grandpa told this story very blandly and seemed to believe that the situation was what it said on the tin. But of course in the 1940s 60s it was quite common for teenage girls to go live with relatives for a year as a code for having an out-of-wedlock pregnancy. My grandpa would never have admitted if they'd been having sex, but I'm betting they were. She got pregnant, and she was sent off somewhere to have the baby. I've done commercial DNA testing, so I'm on the lookout for someone to turn up as a sibling match to my mom someday. The only other explanation for my grandma suddenly leaving town would be if her parents didn't approve her relationship with my grandpa. But from everything I know of them, they were perfectly fine with their 13-year-old daughter dating a guy in his 20s. Go live with relatives for a year. My mom's ex-mother-in-law, yep, had a sorta similar story. We were chatting last Christmas and my girlfriend mentioned her dad had a cabin at this super remote lake, and the email says something about that area was wonderful. I spent a year at a ranch up there when I was younger, and then got this weird look on her face and never ever mentioned it again. I'm not blood related to them, but I know that side of the family has had several incidents in almost every generation. The ex-brother-in-law just found out at the age of 60 that he has a 30-year-old daughter with some lady he hooked up with while camping one night. But I also know that my grandfather on that side wasn't my biological grandfather. Parents let me know in my mid-20s, long after he had passed. My biological grandfather died in World War II and my grandmother remarried. I feel like there's a lot of stories like that where the family just quietly created a new truth for the sake of propriety. When my grandparents met and started dating, my grandma was only 13. My grandpa was 20. Woo. Reddit questions are a clever way I could compile data on every one of us. It's taking questions like, what would you buy if you could only buy things with the first letter of your name? Double quote. Children of the 80s what? Double quote. What is it in your state country that it's capable of building a profile on all of us? According to our AI generated profile, you like eating ass. I didn't say it reached correct conclusions. There's one company in a town local to me who bought up Windows Nobody else in the area seems to do it. Every single window, door, abandoned shop, all done by this one company. They've got a ridiculous sized HQ and have put a decent amount of money towards fixing up other buildings in the area. So I've got the theory they're the ones doing the damage or paying people to do it, and then obviously getting the job of fixing it up as they're really well known in the area. Despite having no proof of this, I am 100% confident I am onto them. Someone was repeatedly breaking my BJJ gym's windows. My gym being heavily populated by cops and pies set up surveillance and caught the window repair guy doing it. My pa grew up in Brooklyn in the 60s and on up. For a few months every Saturday night there was a handful of car windows smashed. Guess what? Only one car window repair shop open on Sunday. Dun dun dun. They staked out neighborhoods around the shop that was open. As you guessed, the genius owner was going around with a slingshot shooting out people's windows on Saturday nights to drum up business. That my ex-wife's boyfriend hurts my boys. They used to tell me it happened but I never had proof. I then saw Mark one day and they said it was cause of the boyfriend and she explained it away. Open bracket. All of these times it'd call CPS and nothing came of it. One time my boy told CPS that when he talks bad about the boyfriend, mom hits him. But still nothing happened. After that point they stopped telling me things, which in my opinion means that they are just afraid of being hit by mom for telling me things about the boyfriend. This is one of those scenarios. As sketchy as it may seem, a stuffed animal nanny cam could come in handy in their room, just in the off chance that something could be caught on camera. That I have some crazy rare unknown disease and anytime I go to the doctor they say everything's fine even though I haven't felt the same for 6 months. That my 5-month-old knows exactly when I'm about to fall asleep and starts crying just to duck with me. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is no louder, more upsetting noise to a baby than the sound of a parent's head hitting a pillow. That's why you gotta sleep on the floor twice a week to throw him off. Never let the enemy know your next move. I believe that Apple never actually intended for anyone to buy their $999 monitor stand. It was just an excuse so they could invalidate all warranty claims for the Pro monitor. We can't approve your claim due to the use of improper third-party equipment. Nice thinking. Our ancient, human history is far more vast and impressive than we can even begin to imagine. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Reading Graham Hancock's America Before Right Now. He certainly makes plausible arguments that a large part of human history has been lost. Well, of course it has. We only have fragments from ancient civilizations, and those are just the ones we've found. There's no way to know how many were completely wiped from Earth, and the history that we do have was written mostly by the winner in a way that makes them look good. That a lot of businesses in my hometown are just money laundering operations. 25 nail salons in a town of 70,000, 3,000 square foot DVD rental shop in the best block of downtown where commercial rents are very high, dozens of $10 barber shops sitting empty all day but remaining open, red flags all around. Love this one. There's some sort of metaphorical goggles you can put on and you'll just look around somewhere and see things slightly out of perspective and it just stands out. Like seriously, when have you ever seen someone walk into a mattress store? And yet I've accepted the fact that they're so common and haven't thought twice about it. Edit. Obviously I'm not convinced all mattress stores are scheming money laundering operations. It was just an example and I found it interesting. I'm just saying go outside without your personal bias or normal behavior. You might see something new. In my hometown, there's a mattress store connected to a pizza place that is open until 4 AM. It is always deserted. You are right. I have no proof, but you are right. Toddler pageants are just dog whistles for pedophile rings to operate in the background. I wish I had stayed ignorant to this idea for the rest of my life. I firmly believe this, and told my daughter's mom that she is never going to be in a pageant. Arguments about objectification, which are also pretty big with me, aside, there is no way in hell I could sleep knowing she's around creepy creepers. Someone has programmed thousands of bots to only upvote the Reddit posts questions they choose, thus manipulating the Reddit mob's direction and narrative. To what end? I don't know. To what end? I don't know. Advertising and political influence. Haha, you're right. Vote Biden, wear Nike. Vote Biden in your Nikes. The Kardashians usually wear solid colored clothing because it's easier for them to Photoshop. Excellent observation. Suspect my physically and mentally abusive ex-husband was planning on offing me during our separation divorce. He got a $75,000 life insurance policy on me during our separation. Found out 2 years after our divorce when he had overpaid the policy and the insurance sent me a refund check. Mistake on their part. During our separation, he had invited me to join his family vacation at Grand Canyon. I said no. He invited me to the mountains that same summer to try to be a family again. I said no. Then he invited me to Mexico for reconciliation. Again no. Open bracket. I said no because the gut feelings I had and my mom told me not to. She had 3 dreams in a row that my soon-to-be ex-husband would tell her I was dead. I have no proof. Just the insurance policy and my mom's dreams. 2 years after divorce, he cancelled policy. I didn't know you could get insurance on someone without them knowing. A neighbor of mine was in a similar situation. She met a man online who was from a different country. They started an online relationship, and when he came out to visit her in person for the first time, he proposed. They got married shortly after. He was also abusive and insisted on her getting a $1 million life insurance policy. When she talked to an attorney about divorcing him, the attorney told her she needed to cancel the life insurance and make sure he knew that she had cancelled it for her own safety. They got divorced and he married someone else almost immediately. The attorney made it sound like this sort of behavior is not unusual from abusive partners. I didn't know you could get insurance on someone without them knowing. Generally you have to have a reasonable interest in them. Getting insurance on your children or current spouse is easy. I guess maintaining an existing policy from when you were married was easy. But getting a brand new policy after the divorce I'd assume would be somewhat hard. Jeffrey Epstein was murdered, coerced into suicide. I agree with you. He was it, to protect other prominent people and their pedophilia. At the bare minimum, he was coerced into offing himself and the guards were paid off. I'm no conspiracy nut, but this is the one single conspiracy I firmly believe. That my father was in a super secret sector of the military during his service in the Vietnam War. Unfortunately, he died 2 years ago, so I'll probably never know what he really did. https://www.archives. Gov Veterans Military Service Records. You can request his records. Every unit he was in will be on them. Oh shit, I should do this for my grandpa. Several years ago he offhandedly told my mom and I that he was a cryptologist. Actually maybe a cryptolinguist? In Korea with a top secret clearance. This was the one and only time he's ever stated this. My mom, his daughter, didn't even know until that day. Queen Elizabeth will probably live up to 120 years and longer. She is one of the best fed and most cared person on earth. If we invented something for immortality, she likely took it already. So did Betty White then. That Apple invented the AirPod meme. I think most companies invent memes about their products in order to sell more. I think my great-great-uncle was gay, but lived in a time where he had to hide that part of himself. He never had a wife or kids. He traveled a lot and was very into art. I asked my grandma a while back if she thought he was gay and she said he just wasn't interested in having girlfriends. That's a funny way for your grandma to tell you he was gay. That's very interesting. It's kind of difficult to translate modern ideas of sexual identity to the past, though there was certainly some gay culture. He may have been what we consider now asexual, or he just didn't want to conform to the very narrow idea of what social relationships were back then. That the universe is teeming with life. Earth just can't be that special. Edit. Glad this is a rich topic. I'm very familiar with the Drake equation and the Fermi paradox. My favorite answer to the Fermi paradox is that we're just not that interesting. Life on Earth is an anthill in a grassy area in the corner of an enormous city. Super curious to hear thoughts from those who doubt there is life elsewhere. Would love to hear your reasoning. Maybe our particular conditions are unique or very rare, but I also have a hard time believing there's not some kind of life somewhere out there. Considering the size and age of the universe, it's almost irrational to think no planet other than Earth ever has or will sprout life. The real question is, does or will compatible advanced life exist within the reach of humanity? Considering the size of the universe, there could be other sentient species on other planets right now. But since they're hundreds of billions of light years away, we'll never know they exist. The age of the universe means there could have been sentient species that evolved, created some form of civilization, invented space travel, propagated past current human technology and terraformed other planets in their star system. Then that star exploded and wiped them all out long before our sun was ever born. Even if a species did exist within our physical reach at the same time as us, and we did stumble across it or vice versa, we would have to have similar ways of existing and communicating to be able to understand each other. What happens if they're not carbon-based, our environments are toxic to each other, or we sense things in incompatible ways, such as seeing in different spectrums of light? If they can see at all, it's like going to the beach and saying that for 2 random seconds in a century, 2 random grains of sand will glow a random color out of every color on the spectrum. What are the chances the 2 grains will flash the same color at the same time? Right next to each other? Can, does, did, or will life evolve outside of Earth? Almost definitely. Do Greylings reptilians visit Earth in spaceships and kidnap humans to experiment on? Absolutely not. I strongly suspect that most people that know me do not like me. Edit. Thanks for the likes and all the help. Don't be silly, not everyone knows you. Prince Charles will never sit on the throne. I believe he made a deal with Queen Elizabeth that in exchange for being allowed to marry Camilla he gave up his right to sit on the throne. Prince William will sit on the throne when Queen Elizabeth dies. If Queen Elizabeth dies, every time someone says God save the Queen, she gets 5 extra minutes. My phone isn't really at 100% when it tells me it is. Taco Bell's R&D department is just a bunch of people sitting in a room getting stoned while someone stands on the other side of a 2-way mirror taking notes. Takes bong hit dude. You know what I could really go for right now? Tacos. No man. I'm craving some Doritos. Takes another hit dude. Put your hands together. Dorito tacos. Analyst scribbles furiously on their clipboard. Eater. Silver. Or you guys. Now that you mention it, I firmly think that a lot of quirky comedies, The Other Guys being a prime example, these days are written over a weekend by 4 guys sitting around a table with nothing but a mountain of cocaine on it. It's possibly the same 4 guys every time. Introducing the new Taco-Rito Taco. Everything you love about a taco in a burrito, in taco form. Women's clothes have either no pockets or crumby pockets to promote handbag sales. That one is true. They save money on not including pocket fabric, and make money on the handbags. There's no way it isn't true. That my wife is throwing one of each pair of socks away. Everyone except for me is a hired actor and I'm in a TV show. Hey, why don't you drink some of this delicious herbal tea brought to you by Lipton and calm down a little, okay? Oh Truman, you're hilarious. Bigfoot is actually a cultural memory from humans who migrated from Asia, and that's why there are stories about Yeti and Sasquatch. The actual creature though died out tens of thousands of years ago. And stories of trolls may have originated from a time when humans and Neanderthals coexisted. I believe my grandmother was a serial killer. She was married 7 times, each ending in a sudden death. She died in the 1980s, but everything is still suspicious and no one seems to know anything. I did find an article about her when she came to the US where her first husband died defending her after her ex-boyfriend climbed in her window in New York City. I also found evidence of her having been in prison before coming to the US. This makes me appreciate my grandma. The Statue of Liberty switches hands when nobody is looking. And if anyone is looking, she just flashes her Neuralizer. Mattress stores are a money laundering scheme. No one buys that many mattresses. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.